And it was certainly the case with the Taiwan pavilion, but it was designed to look like a lantern. And as you went inside, you were asked to choose a wish for the future. And it's kind of interesting because there's a lot of sort of between the lines that you could perhaps read into some of their wishes for the future.
There are many things to wish for.
Yes.
And now there's
There's a Saudi Arabia pavilion, which I'd mentioned earlier, drew huge lines, and it had sort of a bowl shape that's suspended in air and has a little animated screen at the top there. But on the inside, on that dome shape, there's a projected film that you go through over a moving sidewalk, and it's a huge IMAX projection, but it's below you on the dome that's below you, and it is a pretty spectacular presentation.
all right. And then this is Australia.
This is Australia Pavilion. Also did a great view, and I was fortunate during the construction phase to get a tour of the pavilion under construction, so I really got to see, what the pavilion would look like in construction, and then finally see the final product. And Australia is a really good example of using a lot of different presentation techniques. They had live performances. They had sort of static art that you would look through going through it, and at the end they had a 360-degree performance around a rotating stage that had rotating screens and three-dimensional objects coming up from below, and it was a really, really spectacular pavilion.
So kind of multimedia, multi-focused exhibition. This is another shot.
Another shot just showing the Australian pavilion here.
Shanghai is pretty humid and warm in the summer. How did you find the air inside the pavilions? Were they mostly air conditioned, or?
Most of the pavilions are air conditioned. The time I was there, in fact, I kind of planned my trip toward the beginning of the year just so that it wouldn't be too hot. But I understand it's been a very, very hot and humid summer in Shanghai this year. So I was kind of fortunate that it wasn't too bad when I was there. But I understand in the last 2 months it's been pretty brutal, and which I think would also lend well to a World's Fair in San Francisco, because our summers are pretty mild.
Much milder, much more accommodating.
Yeah.
All right, well, let's continue on. We have about 5 minutes left, so I want to get as many pictures.
Okay, this is the Denmark Pavilion, which had sort of a Mobius strip type shape, and you could borrow bicycles and actually bicycle around the pavilion. And if you move to the next slide, you'll see the Little Mermaid statue, which was brought over from Copenhagen. So if you go to Copenhagen right now and see the Little Mermaid, you'll notice it's not there because they shipped it to China. And it's, of course, a very popular exhibit in the middle of the Danish pavilion.
And that's the Christian Andersen story, right? The Little Mermaid.
And that's the one that will return back to China at the conclusion of the expo.
Back to Denmark, right. And Spain.
And this is the Spanish pavilion. They did a very interesting pavilion where they used a lot of different woven techniques to sort of wrap their pavilion, and it was also proving to be a very popular one. Again, they have a combination of static exhibits, video screens, and live performances in the pavilion, and we're kind of focusing on the outdoors here, but you can sort of get a sense of the scale here as well.
And did they have much in Spanish, or was it all translated into Chinese and English, or?
Most of the exhibits are in Chinese. Oftentimes they'll be in Chinese and English, just because most foreigners who are visiting China, if they don't know Chinese, they'll know English likely. And sometimes they'll be in Chinese, English, and then whatever the native country is.
All right, and then now here we have...
this is the Portugal Pavilion, which was made out of cork and very sort of futuristic on the outside. And then when you entered in the inside, it was like a very sort of traditional space. So probably want to go through the next few of them pretty quickly, because this is Switzerland, which had had a ski lift ride on the roof.
Oh yeah, you can see it up there at the top. Okay.
Here's close up. An example of what that looks like close up.
So you got a good view of Shanghai from up there.
Yeah, and you get a great view of the whole expo site and the Lupu Bridge and all of Shanghai from there.
Oh, that sounds like fun.
So,
and then
this is a view from the Switzerland Pavilion looking toward the Germany Pavilion. And then exiting the Germany Pavilion and seeing the Polish Pavilion here.
Okay.
So you get a sort of idea of the scale here and just how massive the thing is. This is the Norway Pavilion at night, a very spectacular pavilion. Sweden. And then this is showing the Norway Pavilion during the day.
Okay.
And then the USA Pavilion, which I think I mentioned in a previous show here that I was kind of disappointed by, but at least we were there, which was a big challenge.
Yeah, it was a
whether or
big
not we were going
challenge
to be
whether
there
we
or
were going
not.
to be there at
So I
all.
was so glad that we were actually are going to be there. So if you can
All right,
forward through,
all
and then you'll forward through these really quickly. You'll just see how the U.S. Pavilion was able to be there, and that the lots of corporate sponsorship,
Right, they
which
had-
was for better or for worse.
The wall of shame or the wall of
well,
fame.
but if it
depending on how
weren't
you
for
look at
that, the U.S. Pavilion probably wouldn't have happened. But I wanted to show that to show some context.
All right.
This is the Mexico Pavilion, which
Okay.
is it was underground and had a nice little park on top.
it. And I'm putting up now the websites that you have, the expomuseum.com and the World's Fair podcast.com. So if people want to see more about your reportage and the things that you've covered, they can go to those websites. And so let's keep on going. Now, this is the famous British one, right?
Yeah, this is the British one, which there are little translucent rods that go through the pavilion, and then you can see them. The light comes in from the outside, and at night it glows from within the inside of the pavilion. And even in person, it looks like a computer project creation, but it's a very experimental, very exciting building. And then the Netherlands Pavilion across the way. Luxembourg, small country of Luxembourg, even had a large presence there.
It looks like a chalet.
Yeah, it's playing off on the mountain. And then this is the proposed expo site for 2020 in Moffett Field. And I wanted to make sure I threw this in. The Bay Area Coalition has been working on this. And Arnold Schwarzenegger announced in Shanghai that we were bidding for 2020. So it's really exciting to sort of see this artist rendering. And being a veteran of many World's Fairs, they never end up quite the way that they had planned or had proposed to begin with. But it does sort of give you an idea of what could happen on Moffett Field in 10 years.
Well, and we hope that you'll be involved with that if it does come here. We're about 10 seconds away from the end.
Okay.
So I just want to thank you again for coming in, Urso Chappell, local World's Fair historian. The show is A View for You. My name is Peter Camarda. Thank you for watching.